The afternoon before Thanksgiving, 1971, a man in a dark suit and tie walked up to the Northwest Orient Airlines ticket counter at Portland International Airport. He paid $20 cash for a one-way ticket to Seattle. He gave the name Dan Cooper, a name that later became D.B. Cooper through a media error that stuck. He was described as white, mid-40s, roughly 6 feet tall, 170 to 180 pounds, with dark hair. He was calm, polite, and unremarkable. He took his seat, 18C, a middle seat near the rear of the Boeing 727-100, ordered a bourbon and soda, and lit a cigarette. He looked like any other business traveler. Within 2 hours, he would execute one of the most audacious crimes in American history and vanish into the night sky. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper handed a folded note to Florence Schaffner, one of the flight attendants. She assumed it was a phone number. Passengers hit on her regularly, and slipped it into her pocket without reading it. Cooper leaned over and said quietly, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." The note stated his demands: $200,000 in negotiable American currency, 4 parachutes, 2 primary and 2 reserve, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle for immediate refueling. Schaffner walked to the back of the plane and sat next to Cooper. He opened a briefcase and showed her what appeared to be red cylinders wired to a battery, consistent with dynamite sticks, though it was never confirmed to be a functional device. Schaffner later described Cooper as calm, businesslike, not nervous. He wasn't aggressive. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stated his terms and waited. The note was never recovered. Cooper asked for it back after Schaffner read it, and it was presumably destroyed or taken with him during the jump. The pilot, Captain William Scott, radioed the demands to air traffic control. Northwest Orient President Donald Nyrop authorized full compliance. Company policy was to cooperate with hijackers to protect passengers. While the plane circled Puget Sound for nearly 2 hours, the FBI assembled the ransom: 10,000 unmarked $20 bills, all with serial numbers recorded on microfilm. They also secured 4 parachutes from a local skydiving school. At 5:39 p.m., the plane landed at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Cooper instructed that the 36 passengers be released in exchange for the money and parachutes delivered via the rear stairs. The exchange was completed. The passengers disembarked, most of them unaware a hijacking had taken place. Cooper had kept the situation contained to the rear of the aircraft. Cooper then ordered the remaining crew, Captain Scott, First Officer William Radijak, Flight Engineer Harold Anderson, and Flight Attendant Tina Mucklow, to fly to Mexico City, with a refueling stop in Reno, Nevada. He specified the flight parameters: altitude no higher than 10,000 feet, airspeed below 200 knots, wing flaps at 15 degrees, and landing gear deployed. These were the conditions that would allow the rear air stair to be opened in flight. The crew complied. At approximately 7:40 p.m., the Boeing 727 took off from Seattle heading south. At approximately 8:13 p.m., as the plane flew over the Lewis River area in southwest Washington state, the crew noticed a sudden change in cabin pressure and a warning light indicating the rear air stair had been deployed. The aircraft's tail pitched slightly, an oscillation consistent with the sudden weight shift of a person stepping off the stairs into the airstream. Cooper was gone. He jumped into darkness, into rain, into temperatures near freezing, at roughly 200 miles per hour, over dense Pacific Northwest forest with no visible landmarks. He was carrying approximately 21 pounds of $20 bills in a canvas bank bag, wearing loafers, a thin business suit, and a clip-on tie, which he left behind on the plane. The clip-on tie was the most significant physical evidence. In 2011, the FBI's Tom Kay found microscopic particles embedded in it: pure titanium, cerium, and strontium sulfide, suggesting Cooper may have worked in the chemical or aerospace industry, possibly at a company using specialty metals. Whether Cooper survived the jump is the central question of the entire case. The FBI launched one of its most extensive manhunts in history. 18 days of ground searches covered the estimated drop zone, a strip roughly 20 miles long and 5 miles wide between the towns of Ariel and La Center in southwest Washington. They found nothing. Hundreds of Army troops, FBI agents, and local volunteers combed through old-growth forest, swampland, and riverbanks. Helicopters surveyed from above. Nothing. No parachute, no money, no body, no clothing. The terrain worked against them. Dense Douglas fir and western red cedar canopy would have concealed a parachute landing. The November rain would have washed away tracks. And the area was enormous. There was no way to be certain of the exact drop point because Cooper's location on the aircraft and the timing of his jump could only be estimated. The FBI kept the case open for 45 years. Over that time, they investigated more than 1,000 suspects. None was ever charged. In July 2016, the FBI officially suspended active investigation, stating, "Every prior tip has been prior investigated to prior conclusion." They acknowledged the case was effectively cold. On February 10, 1980, 8-year-old Brian Ingram was digging a fire pit on Tina Bar, a sandy beach along the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington. He uncovered 3 bundles of badly deteriorated 20 bills, a total of $5,800. The serial numbers matched Cooper's ransom. This is the only ransom money ever recovered. But the discovery raised more questions than it answered. Tina Bar is roughly 20 miles southwest of the estimated drop zone and downstream on the Columbia River. The bills showed significant water and soil damage consistent with years of burial. How did the money get there? One theory is that Cooper landed in or near the Columbia River and the money washed downstream. Another is that it was deliberately buried. A geological study in 2020 by sedimentologist Thomas Kay concluded the money was likely deposited by a dredging operation in 1974, which had pulled sediment from the river bottom onto the beach, meaning the money had been in the river itself for some time before being relocated to the sand. If Cooper landed in the river, survival would have been nearly impossible in November conditions. Water temperatures around 40 degrees Fahrenheit in the dark. The list of suspects is long and contested. The most prominent include Richard Floyd McCoy, a former Green Beret who hijacked a United Airlines flight in 1972 using an almost identical method and was caught 2 days later. McCoy was a trained paratrooper, and the parallels were striking. But he was killed in a shootout with the FBI in 1974, and the Bureau never formally named him as Cooper. His physical description didn't match. Robert Rackstraw, a decorated Vietnam veteran with a history of fraud and identity theft, was publicly named by investigative journalist Tom Colbert in 2016. Colbert's team claimed to have decoded messages in Cooper's letters. The FBI was unimpressed. Kenneth Christensen, a former Army paratrooper and Northwest Orient purser, was nominated by his brother. Christensen reportedly made deathbed statements suggesting involvement, but he was shorter and lighter than Cooper's description. And there are dozens more, each with circumstantial connections, each lacking definitive proof. This is what it comes down to. A man with no demonstrable parachuting experience jumped from a commercial airliner at 10,000 feet at night in freezing rain over unlit forest, wearing loafers and a business suit, carrying 21 pounds of cash. Experienced skydivers have called the jump survivable but extremely dangerous. The parachute Cooper selected, a military NB-8, was functional but not steerable. He would have descended at roughly 15 feet per second in darkness with no ability to choose his landing zone. Dense forest, water, or terrain features could have been fatal. The fact that the parachute was never found suggests one of 3 possibilities. Cooper landed in the deep forest where the canopy swallowed all evidence. He landed in water and sank, or someone recovered the parachute and never reported it. And here's the detail that keeps this case alive. The money found at Tina Bar accounted for only $5,800 of the $200,000. Where are the other 9,710 bills? In 45 years, not a single additional bill has surfaced. Not in a bank, not at a store, not in circulation anywhere. If Cooper survived, he never spent the money. And if he didn't survive, nobody ever found it. Either way, D.B. Cooper pulled off something no one has done before or since. He hijacked an airplane, collected a ransom, and disappeared. Whether he lived to enjoy it or died in the forest is almost beside the point. The mystery is the legacy. What do you think? Did he walk out of those woods,